Let me tell you something about galactic bureaucracy. It's exactly like Earth bureaucracy, just with more tentacles and significantly worse coffee. My name's Krax, Junior Ambassador to the Galactic Council's Department of Pre-Contact Species Management, and I'm currently sitting through my 407th meeting about proper protocol for observing primitive species without being observed back. You'd think that would be straightforward. Don't let them see you, don't abduct their livestock, and definitely don't probe anyone. But no, we need a 16-hour meeting about it, complete with PowerPoint presentations. Yes, somehow PowerPoint managed to become a universal constant. Even species that communicate through interpretive dance have their own version of PowerPoint. The universe has a sick sense of humor that way. And as we can see from subsection 47B of the non-interference guidelines, Ambassador Plink was saying, their eye stalks swaying gently in what I assumed was enthusiasm. The proper distance for observing pre-industrial civilizations must be calculated using the square-cube law of visibility, adjusted for atmospheric diffraction and the species' documented level of paranoia. I tried not to let my third eye glaze over. I really did, but there's only so much one can take, even with 6 backup brains. The humans we were currently observing were barely at civilization level 3. They'd managed to split the atom but were still arguing about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. Fascinating creatures, really, in a watching a chemical fire spread through a fireworks factory kind of way. That's when every screen in the conference room suddenly flashed red. Alert, Class X extinction event detected. Location Sol 3, designation Earth. Severity catastrophic, status ongoing. Oh, thank the 7 moons, I muttered, then quickly adjusted my facial expressions to something more appropriately concerned when Plink's eye stalks swiveled accusingly in my direction. The room erupted into chaos, well, organized chaos. Bureaucratic chaos. Everyone was very careful to raise their appendages and be recognized by the chair being before panicking officially. Point of order, called out Ambassador Zeke, their crystalline form vibrating with alarm. But are we quite certain this isn't another false positive? Remember the great dinosaur debacle of 65 million years ago? The readings are clear, chittered our chief sensor operator, a charming arachnoid named Max. They'd chosen the name after binge-watching every Earth sitcom they could get their pedipalps on. Multiple nuclear detonations detected across the planet's surface. Radiation levels are, well, they're not good. I was about to suggest we take our standard approach, form a committee to discuss the formation of a task force to evaluate the need for an emergency response team, when Ambassador Plink's eye stalks all turned to focus on me. Junior Ambassador Krax, they said, with the kind of tone that meant I was about to have a very bad day. You've studied Earth culture extensively, haven't you? I wouldn't say extensively, I protested weakly. I just happen to enjoy their entertainment broadcasts, purely for research purposes, of course. Excellent. Then you'll head up our emergency response team. We need boots on the ground immediately. But I don't even have boots or feet. Figure of speech, Junior Ambassador. Now gather your team. We need to document this tragic loss to our xenological records. Such a shame. They were just about to discover faster-than-light travel. I had money on them figuring it out next Tuesday. And that's how I found myself being hurried out of the most boring meeting ever and into what would turn out to be the most interesting assignment of my career. Though, if I'd known what was coming, I might have opted to stay and learn more about subsection 47B instead. Sometimes ignorance really is bliss, especially when it comes to humans. Have you ever had one of those days where you're rushing to respond to what you assume is the end of a civilization, but you still have to fill out paperwork in triplicate? Because that's exactly what I was doing while our emergency response ship hurtled toward Earth at speeds that would make Einstein have an aneurysm. Form 739X Emergency Response Team Composition, I muttered, filling out details on my holopad. Species diversity quota? Check. Required number of scientific specialists? Check. Mandatory cultural sensitivity training? Well, 2 out of 3 isn't bad. Max, who I'd quickly recruited for my team because they actually understood human idioms, was monitoring the sensor feeds. Their 8 eyes were doing that rapid blink thing that usually meant Either very good or very bad news. In my experience, it's almost always the latter. "Cracks," they called out, mandibles clicking nervously. "You might want to see these readings." I floated over to their station, trying to look like someone who knew what all those squiggly lines meant. "Talk to me, Max. How bad is it?" "Well, remember how we detected multiple nuclear detonations? Kind of hard to forget, it was literally 2 hours ago." "Right, well, according to these readings, there were actually 37 separate detonations, ranging from what humans would call tactical to, oh, sweet mother of radiation, that's big." I felt my third eye start to twitch, and the human internet is still working. There was a long pause as I processed that information. That's not possible. Their communications infrastructure should be completely destroyed. Tell that to their social media platforms. They're actually trending something called World War III memes. The most popular one seems to be a picture of a dog sitting in a burning room saying, "This is fine." I looked at the sensor readings again, then at the social media feeds, then back at the sensors. "Max, correct me if I'm wrong, but according to these readings, the radiation levels in some of these cities should be making organic matter break down at the molecular level." "Correct. So why are humans still posting selfies from those exact locations?" Max pulled up one such image. It showed a human wearing something called a hazmat suit, making a peace sign in front of what was very clearly a mushroom cloud. The caption read, "Living my best apocalypse life, #World War III, #blessed, #rad life." "This is wrong," I muttered. "This is all wrong. Check the historical records. What happened to other species when they reached this point?" Max's pedipalps twitched as they pulled up the data. "Well, the Zorgaxians wiped themselves out with nuclear weapons in about 6 hours. The blip civilization lasted maybe 2 days before total societal collapse. The Meeplings just gave up on technology altogether and went back to living in caves. They're quite happy now, apparently." "So what we're seeing is completely unprecedented, yes?" I stared at another social media post, this one showing humans organizing something called a post-apocalyptic pizza party. "Ambassador Plink," I called over the ship's comm system. "I think we may need to revise our mission parameters. This isn't looking like a standard extinction event documentation anymore." "Oh," their voice crackled back. "Have they already destroyed themselves completely? That would be a new record." "No, that's just it. They haven't destroyed themselves at all. They're adapting, like some kind of terrifyingly resilient bacterial colony, but with Twitter accounts." "Impossible. The radiation levels alone—" "Tell that to at Nuke Bay 47, who's currently live-streaming their breakfast from what should be a lethal radiation zone." There was a long pause on the other end. "Junior Ambassador Cracks, your new mission is to figure out what in the name of the 7 moons is going on down there. And please, for the love of all that's scientific, find out how they're surviving this. The Galactic Council's Statistical Probability Department is having a collective nervous breakdown." And I looked at the approaching Earth through our view screen. The planet looked surprisingly normal for something that had just experienced multiple nuclear detonations. There were even fewer fires than I'd expected. "Max," I said, "prepare the landing shuttle and maybe pack some radiation shields. The really good ones." "Already done," they chittered. "I also downloaded all of Earth's disaster movies for research purposes, though I'm starting to think they might have been documentaries." As we prepared for landing, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to discover something that would fundamentally change how the galaxy viewed humans. I just hoped we'd survive the discovery process. After all, any species that can take nuclear war in stride is probably capable of just about anything. There are certain expectations one has when landing on a planet that's just experienced nuclear war. Devastated wastelands, roving bands of survivors, maybe some mutant creatures, if you're feeling particularly imaginative. What you don't expect is to be greeted by a welcoming committee with coffee and donuts. "Oh, thank God you guys aren't the lizard people," said the human who introduced herself as Director Watson of the Global Emergency Response Division. We've had a betting pool going for decades about who'd show up first after we went nuclear. I had my money on the Greys, personally. I stood there, all three of my eyes blinking in confusion, while Max tried very hard not to vibrate with excitement at meeting their first humans in person. You were expecting us?" I managed to ask. "Well, not you specifically," Watson said, taking a bite of her donut. "But we figured someone would show up once the nukes started flying. Hard to hide that kind of light show from space. Coffee? It's not great, but it's what we've got in the bunker." "The bunker," I repeated numbly. "Oh yeah, we've got these babies all over the place. Been building them since the Cold War. This one's pretty cushy, actually. We've got Netflix and everything. Though the Wi-Fi's been a bit spotty since, the apocalypse." Max leaned over and whispered, "Cracks, my radiation detector is going crazy. According to this, we shouldn't be able to have this conversation. The humans should be, well, dead?" Watson supplied helpfully. "Yeah, that would be inconvenient. Good thing we planned ahead. Hey, Tommy, bring out the iodine pill display for our guests." A young human wheeled out what looked like a museum exhibit, complete with informational plaques. "This is just a small part of our Surviving the Apocalypse collection," he explained proudly. "We've got a whole museum section dedicated to nuclear preparedness through the ages. The kids love it. Really brings history alive, I looked at the exhibit, then at the humans, then at my radiation detector, then back at the humans. You have a museum about nuclear survival in your nuclear survival bunker." "Well, yeah," Watson said, like this was the most normal thing in the universe. "Got to remember where we came from, right? Besides, it gives people something to do between the hourly radiation readings and the weekly bunker talent shows." "Talent shows," I repeated, wondering if perhaps I'd accidentally ingested some hallucinogenic substances. "Last week's winner did a really great stand-up routine about fallout patterns," Tommy added. "You had to be there." Max was practically vibrating now. "Cracks, this is amazing. They've turned potential extinction into an educational experience with entertainment and snacks." "Speaking of snacks," Watson cut in, "we're having a potluck later to celebrate 1 month since the bombs dropped. You're welcome to join. Though fair warning, the vegetables are all from the hydroponic gardens and Dave's still figuring out how to grow tomatoes under artificial light." I held up all 4 of my hands. Wait. You're telling me that not only did you survive multiple nuclear detonations, but you're having a party about it? Well, what else are we going to do? Mope around? That's not very productive. Besides, studies showed that maintaining social cohesion and community morale would be crucial in a post-nuclear scenario. Hence, potlucks. "Studies," I said weakly. "You studied how to have parties after nuclear war." "Among other things, we've got quite the library of survival guides. Everything from nuclear war for dummies to post-apocalyptic cuisine, making the most of your canned goods." That last one's been really helpful, though I still think the chapter on spam sushi was a bit much. Max was taking notes so frantically their pedipalps were becoming a blur. "This is unprecedented. The psychological resilience alone is fascinating, and they've systematized it. Cracks, we have to stay for the potluck, for research purposes, of course." I looked at my radiation detector again. The numbers hadn't changed. By all scientific logic, we were standing in a death zone. Instead, we were being invited to what sounded like a nuclear-themed block party. "Director Watson," I said carefully, "I have to ask, how are you all so calm about this?" She shrugged. "Oh, we've been expecting this for generations. After a while, it just becomes part of life, like taxes or bad weather, or conspiracy theories about Finland not existing." "Finland doesn't exist?" Max asked, pencil poised. "Focus, Max," I muttered. "Director, are you saying your entire species has just been waiting for nuclear war, for generations?" "Pretty much. I mean, we hoped it wouldn't happen, but—" She gestured at the mushroom cloud visible through the bunker's reinforced window. "Better to have the bunkers and not need them, right? Now, about that potluck. Do either of you have any dietary restrictions we should know about? And how do you feel about slightly radioactive casserole?" You haven't lived until you've seen an arachnoid alien try to eat potato salad with radiation-shielded utensils. Max was handling it with admirable determination, though I noticed they kept dropping bits into their specimen container when they thought no one was looking. We'd been at the bunker for 3 Earth days now, and things just kept getting weirder. I was in the middle of writing my preliminary report to the Galactic Council, and every sentence felt like it needed a disclaimer. Day 3 of investigation into human nuclear survival capabilities, I dictated while Max continued their sampling. Subjects continued to display unprecedented adaptation to post-nuclear conditions. Current theories include mass hallucination. Unlikely, our sensors confirm they're actually alive. Extreme evolutionary leap possible, but doesn't explain the pre-planning. Time travelers warning their past selves ruled out after discovering humans' time machine projects all failed hilariously. Humans are just like this, terrifying if true. Don't forget about the mole people theory, Max called out around a mouthful of what the humans called Twinkie. Apparently these things could survive nuclear war too. Max, for the last time, there are no mole people. That's exactly what a mole person would say. I was about to remind them about proper scientific objectivity when Director Watson walked in, carrying a stack of what appeared to be ancient paper documents. "Found these in the archive," she said, dropping them on my desk. "Thought they might help with your research. It's our collection of nuclear survival pamphlets from the 1950s onwards. The illustrations are hilarious, and I picked up one titled Duck and Cover and felt my third eye start twitching again. Your species was teaching children about nuclear survival 70 years ago. Oh yeah, it was a whole thing. We had mascots and everything. Bert the Turtle was my personal favorite, though the nuclear family pun got a bit out of hand." Max skittered over, all 8 eyes wide with interest. "And these educational materials, they worked?" "Well, sort of. The early stuff was pretty basic, but it got people thinking about survival. Then we just kept building on it. Every generation added their own twist. My grandmother helped design the first underground hydroponic farms. Mum specialized in radiation-resistant architecture. I focused on maintaining digital infrastructure post-apocalypse." I looked up from the pamphlets. "Your entire family specialized in nuclear survival." "Lots of families did, still do. It's kind of a tradition. Like passing down a family recipe, except it's instructions for surviving atomic warfare." Just then, Tommy burst into the room, looking excited. "Director, the Australians just made contact. They're challenging us to a post-apocalyptic cricket match next month." "Excellent." Watson clapped her hands. "See if the Brits want in too. They've been cooped up in their tea bunker for weeks." "Tea bunker," I said flatly. "Oh yes, they've got the world's largest underground tea stockpile. Very proud of it. Though the Russians claim their vodka bunker is more impressive." I made another note in my report. Humans appear to have prioritized preserving cultural traditions alongside basic survival necessities. Further investigation needed into what they consider necessary for survival. Max was now thoroughly engrossed in a pamphlet titled "Fashionable Fallout, Looking Your Best at the End of the World." "Cracks," they chittered excitedly. "According to this, humans designed special clothing lines for nuclear winter, with matching accessories. They even considered the practical implications of radioactive fashion faux pas." "That's right," Watson nodded. "Can't let a little thing like nuclear war stop you from being fabulous. Besides, the reflective materials actually provide decent radiation protection. Form and function, you know." I looked at my notes, then at the humans going about their daily routines in their fully equipped underground city, then back at my notes. "Director," I said carefully, "I have to ask, just how many of these bunkers do you have?" She smiled. "Would you like to see the map?" 20 minutes later, I was staring at a global display showing thousands of interconnected dots. Each dot represented a fully functioning underground facility, complete with sustainable food production, power generation, and apparently entertainment venues. Is that an underground theme park in Nevada?" "Yep, the Nuclear Nugget Adventure Park. The roller coaster's a bit shaky, but the uranium mining simulation is pretty popular with the kids." I made one final note in my report. "Request immediate reassessment of human threat level. Any species that plans this thoroughly for their own potential destruction is capable of literally anything. Max looked up from their fashion pamphlet. Can we visit the theme park for research purposes? Sometimes I think the universe has a sense of humor. Other times I'm absolutely certain of it. After 2 weeks of investigation, multiple bunker tours, and one particularly memorable underground karaoke night, turns out Max can really belt out "I Will Survive." We finally got our formal briefing from what remained of Earth's government, and by remained I mean continued functioning exactly as before, just from better furnished basements. "So you see," explained President Chen from the Oval Bunker, which was an exact replica of the original Oval Office but with significantly better radiation shielding, nuclear war was never a matter of if, but when. We just made sure we were ready for it. I looked around the underground replica of one of Earth's most famous rooms, noting that they'd even included fake windows with digital screens showing a pre-war Washington, D.C. landscape. The attention to detail was somewhere between impressive and disturbing. "But why?" I asked. "Why put so much effort into preparing for your own destruction?" "Oh, that's simple," the president smiled. "Because we knew someone would eventually push the button. Humans are, well, we're kind of predictable that way. So instead of trying to prevent the inevitable, we focused on surviving it." "That's the most pessimistic optimism I've ever heard," I muttered. Max, who was taking pictures of everything with all 8 legs, chimed in. "But the scale of preparation, the resources involved, the coordination required across multiple generations." "Well, that's the funny thing about telling people they need to prepare for nuclear war." President Chen leaned back in her chair. "Once they accept it's probably going to happen, they get really creative about survival solutions. Did you know we have an underwater bunker system too? The Pacific Rim nations got together and decided if we were going to build underground, we might as well build underwater too." I felt a headache coming on in all 3 of my brains. You built underwater nuclear shelters, because why not? Exactly, and space stations, can't forget those, though technically they're more like orbital bunkers. Max dropped their camera. "You have orbital bunkers?" "Sure do, great view of the mushroom clouds from up there. Plus, backup of human civilization in case things went really wrong down here. Always good to have a plan B, and C through Z for that matter." I referred to my notes. "So let me get this straight. Your species spent generations building underground cities, creating underwater survival facilities, establishing orbital backup populations, developing radiation-resistant agriculture, planning post-apocalyptic entertainment, and apparently franchising nuclear-themed amusement parks." "Don't forget the recipe books," President Chen added helpfully. "Did you try the radiation-safe soufflé? It's really quite good." "But why?" I practically wailed. "Why not just not have a nuclear war?" She looked at me like I'd suggested breathing underwater without gills. "Have you met humans? We once had a war over a bucket, an actual bucket. It's kind of our thing. So rather than pretend we'd never use our doomsday weapons, we just prepared to survive them." "The bucket war is real," Max whispered, frantically updating their notes. "I thought that was a mistranslation." "Oh, it's real. We've got the bucket in one of our historical bunker museums. Though there's some debate about whether it's the actual bucket or a replica. Started 3 small wars over that, actually." I sat there trying to process everything. "So when we detected the nuclear launches—" "Just another Tuesday, really," the president shrugged. "Though I will say, the response time of our bunker deployment systems was impressive. We had 98% of the population underground within 12 minutes of the first launch detection. New record, I'm having commemorative T-shirts made." "T-shirts," I repeated numbly. "With glow-in-the-dark ink, though marketing suggested we might be leaning a bit too hard into the radiation theme there." Max raised one of their legs. "Question, does this mean humans have effectively made themselves immune to nuclear warfare as an extinction event?" "Pretty much," President Chen nodded. "Can't really threaten someone with nuclear war if they've got a better survival bunker than you do." though it has led to some interesting architectural competitions. You should see the Japanese bunkers. They've got underground bullet trains connecting their shelter networks. With gift shops. I began composing a mental note for my final report. Human survival strategy appears to be anticipate worst possible outcome, plan extensively for it, then somehow turn it into a tourist attraction. Oh, the president brightened. That reminds me, we're planning a post-war tourism campaign. Earth, now with more ambient glow. What do you think? Too soon? The emergency session of the Galactic Council was going about as well as you'd expect, which is to say there was a lot of tentacle waving, and at least 3 species had already stress-molted. Order, order in the Council. Ambassador Plink's eye stalks were practically tied in knots. Junior Ambassador Cracks, please repeat your assessment of the human response to nuclear warfare. I cleared all 3 of my throats. Well, to put it simply, they're fine. Actually, they're better than fine. They've turned nuclear apocalypse into a networking opportunity. Impossible, shouted the Zorgaxian representative, their crystalline form flickering with agitation. Our simulations showed— Your simulations, I interrupted, didn't account for a species that would spend 70 years literally planning their post-apocalyptic interior design schemes. Max, who had been promoted to senior human cultural expert, mostly because no one else wanted the job, pulled up their presentation. If you'll direct your attention to the screen, you'll see the latest statistics from Earth. Underground population centers functioning at 99.8% efficiency. Radiation-proof agriculture, producing 147% of projected needs. Post-war entertainment sector, surprisingly robust with 3 new streaming services specializing in bunker-based reality shows. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Organized procedural chaos, of course. We're not barbarians. But what does this mean for galactic security? Demanded the security chief, their quantum probability fields fluctuating wildly. I looked down at my final report, then at the council, then at Max, who gave me an encouraging thumbs up with 3 of their legs. Members of the council, I began, I believe we need to fundamentally reassess our understanding of humanity. We've been monitoring them, waiting for signs of technological advancement. Faster than light travel, unified field theory, pizza delivery drones that don't get lost. But we've been missing something crucial. I pulled up an image from Earth. A group of humans having a barbecue in the middle of what should have been a lethal radiation zone, complete with end-of-the-world party banners and souvenir T-shirts. While we were watching for scientific breakthroughs, humans were systematically making themselves immune to extinction. Not through advanced technology, but through sheer stubborn preparedness. They didn't try to prevent nuclear war, they just made sure it wouldn't kill them. But that's not how it's supposed to work, protested the Statistical Probability Department's representative, clutching their probability matrices like worry beads. Tell that to the humans, I said. They're currently organizing an international post-apocalypse sports league. The radiation soccer tournament starts next month. Max clicked to the next slide. They've also filed patents for, and I quote, aesthetically pleasing hazmat suits, radiation-proof pizza ovens, and something called a nuclear winter wonderland theme park experience. The council chamber went quiet, the kind of quiet that happens when an entire galactic governing body simultaneously realizes they may have severely underestimated a species. So, Ambassador Plink said slowly, what exactly are you suggesting? I took a deep breath. I'm suggesting that we update Earth's classification from pre-contact developing world to don't even think about it. Any species that responds to nuclear war by building underground theme parks is probably not a species we want to antagonize. They do make excellent coffee now, Max added helpfully. Their post-war barista training programs are surprisingly thorough. The council spent the next 6 hours debating the implications. In the end, they created a new classification category specifically for Earth. Technically pre-contact, but also technically unkillable. As we left the council chamber, Max was already planning their next research trip to Earth. They're opening a new bunker water park next month, with radioactive wave pools. For science, I sighed. Fine, but this time we're not trying the slightly mutated hot dogs. I don't care how many condiments they offer. And that's how humanity gained galactic recognition, not by reaching for the stars, but by making absolutely sure that nothing, not even nuclear war, could stop them from having their weekend barbecues. Though I still have questions about that soufflé recipe. End report, PS attached 1. I survived the nuclear apocalypse and all I got was this t-shirt, glow-in-the-dark ink included.